Hello, everyone. My name is Max Stewart, and I'm the percussionist for the University of Houston's Aura Contemporary Ensemble. And I have with me Alejandro Cardona, the composer of Palenque, who is based in Costa Rica, and he studied at Harvard, and he won the composition prize there at the Brooklyn Library, and also the composition contest for the Hugh F. McColl Prize for composition. Um, and it's just an absolute pleasure to be speaking with him today. Wondering, this piece has heavily to do with Maroon people and Maroon culture, and I was wondering um, where your inspiration came from to research this and to make a whole piece inspired by this very rich culture.
Well, I think many years ago, when I was about let's say 17 or 18,
Mm-hmm.
I started. I had come in contact with various books about Latin America and about the Caribbean, and one of these authors was Frantz Fanon,
Mm-hmm.
who's from he was originally I think from Martinica, and he participated also in the Angolan Revolution in the 1960s, and he was a psychologist, and he wrote a series of very interesting books um, about African culture and African Caribbean culture also. And in this book, he references various other authors. For example, the Martinican poet Aimé Césaire,
Mm-hmm.
who I also read quite a bit, and then who actually some people who have studied his poetry consider him to be a sort of symbolically a maroon poet,
Mm-hmm.
even aesthetically speaking, in terms of the way he uses words and the way he constructs his poetic discourse. And then for for the last 40 or more years, I've been studying different forms of African American culture. When I talk of American, I'm not speaking about the United States, I'm speaking about the continent, because there's
Yeah.
such a confusion with this. But the why? Because it's almost impossible to understand Latin American and Caribbean culture in general, but music specifically, and also um, the sensibility towards musical expression without this African component. It's very, very important, and it's
Yeah.
important not only in the context of the colonial America. It's also important pre-colonial America, because
Yeah.
the African influence in the Iberian Peninsula, for example, which is the peninsula which colonized everything south, well, everything now south of the Rio Bravo, but and even before, way north, more north,
Yeah.
all this southeast of the United States. And um, they had there was an important African influence, especially in the south of Spain, Sevilla, and there was a lot of different aspects that ethnically were integrated into their culture. Um, so I was very interested in studying this, not just simply as an outside thing, as part of what one lives all the time. It's part of all the music you hear. It's part of how we feel music, how we feel the sense of rhythm, the sense of melodic construction, the sense of form is much different, because the influence, the African influence, really modifies the sense of closed linear forms that are also part of Latin American culture, but which come from a different, let's say, a different outlook on
Yeah.
all kinds of things, of music, of time, of how you understand existence as such. So I think that all these things have come together in my music for many years,
Mm-hmm.
for many decades. And actually, this piece, Palenque, toques cimarrones, was a piece that I had various other pieces that were kind of prototypes for this piece. And I
Oh,
think
really?
this really came together in a much more mature way than some of my earlier pieces that work with these kind of metaphors and these kind of musical elements.
That's amazing. It's great to get more knowledge on that kind of stuff. I'm definitely going to check out some of the books that you mentioned about this, so I can learn more about their culture. As I've been working on this piece, I've been really interested with the electroacoustic aspect of it. And the track that goes with it is so interesting. And I was just wondering where you maybe sampled some of these audio clips from, and where you got these tracks from.
Yes, well, I think before I have to speak a little bit about um, what sampling means in this piece in particular, because I think the use of sample material has very different kind of uses
Mm-hmm.
in music, not only contemporary classical music, but also in popular music and whatnot. So it's important to reference this. I must say that all the material that you're hearing on the electroacoustic track was composed
Mm.
literally
Wow.
um, by me, in
Wow.
the sense that I decided what were the sonorities going to be and everything. The only things that have been constructed that are not like directly controlled, let's say, by the compositional process as in terms of generating the material are some of the textures, which are which many times have been built just on processing certain sound files that I had. Like, for example, there's certain sounds that sound like drum ensembles playing at a distance, very kind of
Yeah.
muddled sound, which is actually something that I hear here at my house. Well, I did hear here at my house
Yeah.
when the comparsa groups from the schools would be rehearsing for the 15th of September, which is the Independence Days that they play.
Wow.
And they used to play these military marches, but now they just play these comparsas in the style of the Atlantic coast of Costa Rica. So I wanted to get these things because for me, it was kind of a very interesting symbol of resistance also, that these rhythms continue to be played by kids. I hear it as sort of like as a mumbling sound in the background that is there when they march down my street, which because my neighborhood has no street that goes out, so there's not only the people who live here drive their cars, so they have or they go to the football field that is the soccer
Oh.
field, which is close by, and so they rehearse there. So but all the rest, so the use of the samples, like unlike some electroacoustic composers, all my piece is constructed beat by beat or figure by figure
Oh.
in a what do you call it, a DAW,
Oh, okay. Okay.
in other words, there's no sequencer material, there's no use of MIDI,
Hmm.
there's no um, there's no real there's no real synthesis process in other words, I'm not using oscillators or something to generate sounds.
Yeah.
Everything is taken from little fragments that then I have to either pitch shift or or make longer or make shorter
Yeah.
according to what I've already composed. So and the compositional process is like I have to be working this out, let's say in Pro Tools or in Logic. It depends where. Usually I do the more detailed editing stuff in Pro Tools, but then all the more the processes of, let's say, mastering and mixing I do in Logic,
Okay.
because Pro Tools is just more flexible for editing than Logic
Yeah.
because I'm used to it. That's basically it. It's not that it's better or worse. It's just I got used to it. And but Logic has certain things that for certain plugins that I can use, for example, for spatializing the sound and
Mhm.
whatnot, that is very sophisticated, which I can do there better. So, for example, let's take some examples. A lot of the samples are really literally just small fragments, sometimes less than a second,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, of of let's say vocal sounds or drum sounds or whatever. And then this has been I've used them as, let's say, an instrument to make a realization of my composition, which of course is on the other side of it, is that the composition is of course based also on the musics from which I take these little fragments of samples. And there's only one place really in the whole piece where you hear a sampled material very vaguely, which is right kind of in the coda of the piece, right after that last big climax.
Yes.
Right before the end, where you have which has a symbolic reason for being. You hear some children from West Africa singing a children's song.
Yes.
And you, on top of this, hear Yoruba liturgical music played by Cuban musicians together, but they're mixed in such a way that it's sort of a kind of a dialogue between, let's say, Africa and America, no? You know, so, and this happens throughout the whole piece. Like there's some sections where you have this kind of antiphonal vocal things that are sung. It sounds like people sung, but none of this is sampled from anything. That's my composition, which I used different pieces of vocal sounds, both from African origin, also from, let's say, Caribbean and Latin American origin, or Afro-Latin American singers or musics. And then I pieced this all together and was able to create these textures that, for me, is sort of like a neo-African or Afro-American kind of expression, which has to do with the metaphor of the piece. So, because the idea that you build a discourse from fragments, mutilated fragments of the original discourses, is partially what makes this a maroon piece, let's say.
The many cultures coming together.
And because many of the African ethnic groups that came as slaves to or were forced to come as slaves to the American continent, they weren't all from the same. They were all mostly West African, but they came from different regions with different ethnic groups. And so many of the maroon, the places where they would escape to were actually African slaves from different ethnic groups who then had to rebuild in a certain way their own existential situation, and to me it's a great symbol of resistance and of human beings who have had to overcome really difficult situations.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope everyone will tune in next Monday to hear the next installment of the one-on-one series. Thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for playing my piece. I'm very honored that you would choose my piece to record, and I hope you have enjoyed it.
I've had such a great time with it. Thank you.